Welcome to Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas. Find us online at hancepodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you via email as well. Send email to info@hancepodcast.com. Chancellor, let's get started today with the saying of the day.
Only those who risk going too far will possibly find out how far they can go. You got to risk it. You got to get out there. T.S. Eliot said that. I think it's a great one.
Right. What they say, bravery favors the bold, right?
Yep. And, so many people, they're afraid they'll fail. They're afraid, look, that's part of it. And that if you fail, if you're hoping someday you'd be a 10 in some sport or academic or whatever, and you decide to go for that, and let's say you get a 9 and the average is 5, you've still excelled.
You've known quite a few businessmen that were known to take big swings too, right? Over the years, I come to mind Boone Pickens, for example. He wasn't afraid.
Boone Pickens had no fear. One time a guy was with him on seminary. He said that I told him, I said, Boone's got no fear. He said, I worry about the judgment too. but Boone had a deal one time on some natural gas, and a friend of mine put $250 million in it, and he was down to 30-something million, and from his 250, and it turned around. He wound up making about 500 above his 250, and if it'd gone another few months that way, it'd been zero. And so he was a gambler, and he'd take big risk. I'll take risks, but I like for them to be measured. Mm-hmm. I want to know, if things go poorly, can I still pay for this? Mm-hmm. If the market goes bad, can I still pay for these apartments? If they're renting 80% or 75% instead of 90%, can I still pay for them? And those are the questions I think you've always got to ask.
Right. And you once said hope is not a good strategy, I think. And
hope and prayer will not produce the best results. It's good to pray and it's good to have hope. But if that's your whole game plan, you're not going to go far.
We mentioned earlier we'd love to hear from you via email, which is info@hancepodcast.com. And we have a name from your past. Someone wrote to us and told us about one of your relatives.
This is hilarious. Sam Lynch, who was a captain for the police department, or the sheriff's office in Montgomery County, north of Houston. He wrote me a nice note, and Sam served with distinction and was a captain and is now retired. But at one time, he was assigned to Precinct 1, and the commissioner was Oliver Hance. And he said, your Uncle Oliver, he's really my cousin. But he was older and everything. Everybody called him my uncle, which is fine and everything. What had happened, Sam listened to what we said about Christmas bonuses and how cheap some were. And one guy gave a bonus that you had to go to a party, but you had to pay $25 to get in the party. Mm-hmm. And then another one gave a jelly of the month. How cheap can you be? And so he writes me a letter, Sam Lynch does, and said, I have written previously, but as a reminder, I was the commercial vehicle enforcement deputy sheriff assigned to Precinct 1 when your Uncle Oliver was the county commissioner. I loved Mr. Hance and learned a lot in our 4 years together, and learned quickly that Mr. Hance was thrifty and conservative. And then he puts, some people said he was cheap. And I think some people were correct. And Oliver was a great American, true patriot. As a county employee, they didn't get bonus. In a lot of governments, you don't get a bonus, and you make up for it other ways. But after hearing your podcast about Christmas bonuses, I was reminded of my first Christmas with Oliver Hance as county commissioner. And after the Christmas meal, his wife brought in food and everybody brought a dish, and they had a big Christmas meal. And so said they had a gift, And he said, Mr. Hance and Jeanette, his wife, they lined up for people to come get their gift. And they had a big basket, and you could get something out of each basket. So you're really getting 2 gifts. And what it was shampoo and conditioner and soap from hotels from their I'm talking about little bitty soap and little bitty, that was their bonus. And you know, Sam was right. He said that his wife of 48 years reminded me of Mr. Hance. You know, we had good memories of him, but he was not big on bonuses. he didn't pay it out of his pocket, but he was giving them shampoo, conditioner, and he got a hat, a cap, a water cap, you know, so you could keep your head covered during a shower. But I think that's hilarious. And Uncle Oliver was trying to save the county money, and did.
We did.
And did.
He certainly did.
And so to Sam Lynch, Captain Lynch, we appreciate hearing from you. That's a hilarious story. I use it in some of my speeches to prove that the Hance family has a lineage of being conservative.
Certainly do.
I would have dug down probably a little and got everybody $5 gift certificate or something. And but Uncle Oliver, he is making sure that he didn't waste any money, and I thought that was pretty good. One other thing I want to mention: the U.S. Supreme Court has granted a writ of certiorari that they will hear the Colorado case, where the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Trump couldn't be on the ballot. And they'll take up everything that will have an effect on what happened in Maine when the Secretary of State decided that, you know, I think he's involved in insurrection, so let's just take him off the ballot. And these people aren't real bright. They're helping him, and sometimes Republicans will do certain things that help the Democrats and vice versa. And trying to keep people off the ballot is not something that makes a lot of sense.
And isn't it interesting, if you go all the way back to the very first indictment of President Trump, the Alvin Bragg indictment, the next week he was up 10 points in the polls.
The general public, they like the underdog. Mm-hmm. They like to feel sorry for the underdog. So, I mean, you look at the polls in the Republican primary, he's going to win big in Iowa and New Hampshire, South Carolina. And, you don't know what's going to happen on some of these other cases. But I don't think, 5 judges or 4 or whatever it was in Colorado, or one person that's not even elected in Maine is going to say, "No, don't put him on the ballot. We'll leave that guy off the ballot. We don't want people having a choice." And, people go out there and vote who they want to.
You said something interesting before we started recording today that what the law says about proof of insurrection. I don't think many people know that.
Some people say that you've got to, on the insurrection, he hadn't been indicted, hadn't been convicted, anything. And some people say, well, you don't have to prove it if he's just involved. Well, who determines that? Mm-hmm. And so that would be determined by an individual. And so that's a speculation that the real hardcore liberals take the position that if somebody thinks he was, that's enough. And that's not going to make it.
Seems very undemocratic to just take someone off of a ballot.
The audit, they'd have a harder time beating some of those other Republicans than they would the former president.
Right. We'll see how it plays out.
It'll be interesting to watch, and there'll be a lot of criticism of the Supreme Court, no matter how they vote. They'll get criticism both sides. But they're not up for election. They're there for life, and so you're probably not going to hear much.
Some people were saying that this is the biggest thing that John Roberts will have to deal with as a Supreme Court justice in his career.
It may be true. And Roberts, without Roberts, you still got 5 conservative votes. With him, you got 6. Who knows? I would, you kind of hope that they would look down the road and vote 9-0 that you can't have unelected people in Maine taking people off the ballot because they don't like them.
And don't you feel like the country needs clarity on this?
Yeah.
Everyone does, right?
And so I would hope that they would have a 9-0 vote, but I don't expect that.
Yeah. Let's move on to here we are into 2024. Of course, that means people are going to make New Year resolutions. And they say 33% of people made New Year's resolutions and 16% plan to, at some point, make a New Year's resolution.
Well, and 45% said no. New Year's, no, I'm not going to do that. And the New Year's resolution, they usually go with saving money, health, exercise, their eating habits, and improving their physical attributes and their health. So a lot of that goes into the saving of money. That's important. Not running up a bunch of credit card, and all those things are important. But 36% of the people in that study are confident that they'll be able to keep them, and they're 53% are hopeful. Now, if they're just hopeful, I think those resolutions are not going to last a long time. And 1%, this was kind of funny, 1% said there's no chance they'd keep them. They didn't last long. I mean, we were poll taken on the third or fourth, and they said, no, I got no chance. They're not dedicated on it. And it's resolutions. If you're going to have a resolution about, I had a friend that had a resolution about not drinking any more Diet Cokes. Mm-hmm. And as you got to make that resolution, you got to say it to yourself mentally every morning.
Yeah.
And work through that day, just that day.
Exactly. And not say 6 months down the road, just that day.
If you look down the road, it's not, it's not going to work.
No.
You got problems. And I think that resolutions fun. They can be funny, but if somebody's really dedicated to them, they can help their health. They can physically be in better shape, and they can save some money. Mm-hmm. There's some good things can happen, but that has to be that they're dedicated to it, and it's not, I'm going to try.
A lot of people ought to look at their health insurance provider because sometimes you get free or discounted gym memberships. People need to read those, some of the benefits of your health insurance. That's a pretty good one, right? It's
Absolutely.
in the best interest of the gym to keep,
Absolutely.
Or the company to keep you healthy.
I belonged to a gym one time, and I've got an exercise room in my house now, but I belonged to a gym, and I came out, and these girls were giving away a drink, and it was called Red Bull. And I drank that, and I was tired and sweating and exhausted. I drank that, and they gave me a couple more, and I drank one going home. Got one when I got home. Wonder I didn't die of a heart attack and the caffeine, those. Well, I didn't think any about. The next morning, about 3 a.m, my eyes had not blinked. I had consumed a lot of Red Bull, and it tasted really good because I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was hyper. I can mop the floors and catch up on emails, do everything. And when something's free, I'm bad about it. Oh yeah, let me have one of those. Mm-hmm. And it was not a smart move on my part.
Well, things worked out for Red Bull too.
Yeah, they have, and they're big time. And in alcohol drinks, there's a lot of people drink Red Bull and vodka. Boy, I think with the caffeine and the alcohol, that might cause you to have some problems. In Pennsylvania, a week before last, there was a guy the cops were trying to arrest, and he shot him with a taser. He shot them. Said, no, fella, come here. You're supposed to be the one, you're resisting arrest. You're supposed to be the one that's going to get shot with a taser. Don't be shooting the police with a taser. And they got him for an assault on a policeman.
But people like that do things like that, they seem to forget that those policemen have a lot of friends that'll come help them when they're in need.
Yeah.
Did you see the lawsuit about, I believe it was in Florida, also the Hershey Company and that woman that's going to sue them?
Lady was mad at Hershey because on Reese cups, it had a picture of a pumpkin. His face had been carved, and she contests that there never was carvings on the face of the pumpkins where they made Reese cups.
The peanut butter cups, right? Yeah, the
peanut cups.
Yeah,
and she sued for $5 million. You know, that lawsuit's not going to place, except in the trash. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
What kind of attorney takes that case?
A dumb one. You know, somebody takes that case, and Hershey's not going to settle that. They're not going to give a bunch of money because they don't want to get into a deal where they're everybody starts suing. And when Ed Whitaker was CEO at AT&T, he had a guy named Jim Ellis that was general counsel, was just excellent, one of the best. And you know, I called him one time. The guy was threatening to sue AT&T, and I called him and explained it to him. And I paused so they get in the conversation. And I said, finally, I said, Ed, Jim, what do y'all want me to tell him? And Whitaker said, get in line. Oh, okay, I'll tell him get in line. And, you know, he said, that's not the first guy to ever sued us. That's a frivolous lawsuit. We're going to fight it. And they fought it, and they won. And Whitaker always took if we're wrong, if we've done something wrong, then I want to try to settle it and make things right as soon as possible. But if it's a frivolous lawsuit, we want to fight it all the way, not give in one iota.
Because once you do one time,
the word gets out.
Right. It's over and over again. Yeah. Spend all your money in court.
Yep. Get in line.
It'd be good for you.
Yeah, it's good for the lawyer, but it wasn't good for the client. But I always like that, get in line.
I love it.
And when somebody's threatening to sue one of my clients, I'll think about what Ed Whitaker said, get in line.
Couple of boys, now stay with us on this, friends. And speaking of Ed Whitaker, make sure you go back and listen to that interview. It's fantastic.
Oh, it is.
Two parts.
It's one of the best, and anyone that's in business or is going to go into business, they need to listen to that.
Absolutely.
It tells, you know, Ed Whitaker's an icon, one of the best businessmen. Forbes named him the #1 CEO in the world one year when he was AT&T. And, of course, when General Motors went broke, the White House and Secretary of Treasury called on Ed to bail him out and take over, and he did. Another
great interview. I've listened to it twice. I listened to it again last week with Drayton McLane. That was fantastic.
Drayton McLane he's another icon. You know, here's a guy that took a small business and wound up selling it to Walmart, was vice chairman of the board at Walmart, and also on the Houston Astros, and a lot of good advice. A lot of advice about what his mother told him. You know, if you're a mother, you ought to listen to that.
About friends.
Yeah.
Who your friends. Yeah.
Who your friends are. Tell me about your friends.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, when you drive up I-35 or down I-35 and you go through Waco and you see McLane Stadium.
Yep.
That's Drayton McLane.
That's Drayton McLane. That's the football stadium for the Bears.
Yep.
Baylor Bears.
Couple of boys in New Jersey, twins, born in different years. How's that happen?
Well, I just, mother was a little fast on 23 and a little slow on 24. And they came in. It's kind of funny that they're going to have different birthdays. One was born about 11:30, and then the other one was around 12:30. So I mean, midnight came, and all of a sudden was gone, and you had another kid out there. You had to put a name.
How taxes work on that?
You know, they'd get a deduction for 23.
Right.
One.
Right.
And in 24, they'd get two. Weird deal.
Yeah.
There was a deal on United Airlines was advertising celebrate in Guam New Year's Eve, and then fly with us to Honolulu. Because of international date change and everything, you'll get a chance to celebrate there. Well, everybody signed up for it, wanted to do 2. That'd be unusual and everything. But United, that flight was running 6.5 hours late.
Oops.
So they didn't make it.
Yeah.
Now, Cathay Pacific, Chinese airline, flew out of Hong Kong after people celebrated New Year's there to San Francisco in time to celebrate the New Year's in San Francisco. So they it's one of those records you can tell your kids and your grandkids you held or people at the office that they celebrated in Hong Kong and then they celebrated in San Francisco.
Right. Your pastor at church is human too, and there's one in North Carolina that lost his cool.
Yeah, lost his cool. His wife was in a training program at McDonald's, and she called him and was complaining that she was being disrespected. Now look, hey, nobody can do something to you've got to allow them to do something to you. If they're messing with you, disrespecting, ignore it. But she didn't ignore it. She's crying. And her husband goes down there and goes back and chokes 2 of the people that were in the management training program with her and that were trying to train her. And then he grabs by the throat and, hits them in the face, hits them in the head. And then he grabs one of them and tries to get them over to the deep fryer where they fry their French fries and stick their head down in it. Now, preacher, you've lost your sense. Good gracious, what the heck are you thinking? And it was, he's charged with assault and battery, and will probably get, if he's not careful, get some jail time, especially if he's been arrested before.
Tough to go up in front of that congregation the next Sunday, isn't it? Been all over the paper and all over the news, and talk about respect of others, and talk about tolerance, and talk about let's beat the people up that disagree with us. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah,
that's a good example of that. Could you imagine having a pet pig?
There are people have all kinds of pets, but a pig's smarter than a horse, but a pig. I don't want a pig. I don't want a dog in my house, much less a pig. But these people, and I forget what state it was, that they had a pig in the house and they had a heater, one of those stand-up electric heaters. And so they put him a little bed together of hay and put the heater behind that. Now, who would have been able to guess that something bad might happen? How stupid are these people? And the pig moved around and kept moving around, and he got the hay into the heater, and the hay caught on fire, and the house caught on fire. Shazam! Who would have guessed that? And I laughed. I thought, what the heck were they thinking?
They didn't anticipate.
They did not anticipate it at all.
Either did the guy that dressed up like Bigfoot. Did you see that? That was in Virginia.
In Virginia, this guy dressed up as Bigfoot to scare some people. A couple people shot at him. You can get shot. A joke, it may be a funny joke to you. But somebody says, there's Daddy, Bigfoot's out in the front yard. Get your gun. They get the gun, start firing at you.
Is there not anybody around to say, whoa?
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't dress up. Yeah. Don't dress up as Bigfoot. Somebody's going to shoot you.
Don't you ever just sit around and wonder what goes through people's head, if anything at all? I mean,
on some of the most unusual, you think, what was the guy thinking to use a taser on the police? A police and the rest, there's many times, more than not, there's the mention of a taser, but it's the cops using it on the person that's going to be charged with crime. It's not the criminal using it on the cops. I mean, that goes in the stupid criminal, not on stupid, just dumb.
Claudine Gay right now at Harvard's getting a lot of attention as, being the president of Harvard and all the problems she's got. But how about the guy in Wisconsin? Did you see the story? The University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, who was making porno.
Oh, he's making porno movies.
Yeah.
He and his wife making porno movies, and they fired him, and he's outraged, going to sue them that they fired him.
He couldn't believe it.
I mean, these people not living in reality. Dr. Gay got fired, and look, she was unprepared when she went in front of Congress. So was the president of University of Pennsylvania and probably the MIT. But they kept hedging on the answers about what about the students in certain organizations that are calling for killing of all the Jewish students and eliminate them. And are you opposed to that? Well, we've got freedom of speech. We got, freedom of speech doesn't mean that students can go up and shout and kill certain groups.
Antifada, calling for genocide of Jews worldwide.
Just let's kill everybody, and they make that stupid mistake of saying, and even believing it, and the president doesn't have a firm answer on that. They were kind of nonchalant, and their attitude came across like, "What are we doing in front of these dumbass Congress?" Yeah. Didn't help them.
No.
When people have a tremendous amount of power, try to get along with them and answer their questions respectfully. But they didn't do that.
They came off as very much, they thought they were smarter than everybody.
Absolutely. And that's one of the problems you have in the elite. You take someone, and most people don't, but someone that's had extremely good grades and is in an academic position, they get to thinking that they're smarter than everybody else, and that if you don't agree with them, there's something wrong with you. You're not very bright.
Well, it's no secret that kids today love video games, but I don't know if any of them love them more than a 13-year-old boy in Oklahoma.
I saw that. The kid's name was Willis Gibson, and Willis Gibson, he set the record. He was the first person to ever beat Tetris, and he beat it, and he scored. He scored 6,850,000 points, and it took him about 38 minutes, and he got to the level of 157. And when you're playing that game, each level you go to becomes faster. So you get up to level 157. I mean, that's flying. And I wonder what that kid does every day, all day long. Is he just work video games? The other night, I went to eat with the Texas Tech basketball team, and they go in to eat, and they have to put their phone. They have to give the phone to the manager. They have a bag, like a duffel bag, and you have to go by and turn in your phone. And they don't want them sending text messages. They want them eating and visiting with each other and talking to each other. And they're going to have to do that on the court. And I think most major teams take their phones away from people, and they take them away from them at night.
Really?
They won't sleep. Yeah, because somebody will get to doing emails. If you're on a Final Four team, you'll have 200 or 300 emails in a couple of hours. Everybody wishing you good luck or wanting to know where you are, or how we get together and stuff like that. And they just take them away. I know when Texas Tech went to the Final Four, that there was very limited time that the players could have the use of their telephones.
Where'd y'all go eat?
And went to eat at Bob's Chop House in Austin.
Nice.
It was great. And the food was good. The service was good. And but they had all the players together and all the coaches together and all the staff together in different tables. But they had 15 players, and it was, they were all talking and laughing and talking about different things.
Yeah.
And
it's a
we're
big,
pretty loose.
Big tab, though, I'm sure.
Hey, you take a basketball team somewhere to eat or a football team, that they're going to put some groceries away. By the way, tonight will be the Michigan versus Washington football game. I was impressed with the Washington quarterback, and boy, he could put the ball where he wanted to. And the receivers, they had great receivers. Michigan's got a huge line. They probably don't eat; they just drink diesel. I mean, they're big like trucks, and so it'll be can they keep that quarterback from getting rushed too much? And he has a quick release, in that he gets rid of the ball pretty fast. So it should be an interesting game tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. The saying of the day: only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. That's important. So risk it, go far, do well. Talk to you next week.